Okay, so what we're going to do here, I created a new hand for this model. Here you see me, appending the new hand into the whole body. And the problem is, everything is joined in this file. So I have to separate and delete the old hand in order to join in the new hand. I had to adjust the height a little bit. And here we are. Now you'll see I'm gonna select a row of these vertices. It's a whole circle. Then I'll delete that. Now I'm just making sure that there are no other vertices selected. For some reason in Blender 2.8, I seem to accidentally select a lot of extra vertices that I don't want selected. So I'm just double checking that that ring is the only thing that's selected. Okay, and now I'm going to delete that ring, separating the hand from the rest of the model. And I select any vertices in that model, hit the L key, it will select just the hand because it's now separated. Okay, now I select that ring. I'm going to extrude it out and face it. And the problem I'm having here is that there's so many polygons, so many vertices in here, like there's tons of them in here, that my computer's slowing down and it's giving me problems getting things where I want them. You can see the angles are off because it's just running so slow. Oh God, that drives me nuts when your computer slows down like that. But that's just because there's so much information in this file. So you really want to keep an eye on your polygons and your vertices as you're working on stuff like this. You want to keep them manageable until the very end. Then you smooth everything out. Okay, here I finally got it. So I faced that wrist so that it's one complete mesh. Now I'm going to join the model to the hand. And then I'm going to cut the hand off. I know that may not make any sense, but we want to print the hand separately from the body. So we need to separate it. I'm joining the hand to the model. Now I've deleted the hand. So now I have one whole mesh. Everything is one model, all joined together. Okay, I'm adding the mesh that I'm going to use as a cutter. And it takes me a little bit to get things in there right, because I want to print the hand back at an angle so that the thumb is pointing upwards at an angle. And I want to do that so that I don't need to use supports. I've got the bit of that staff in there to support the fingers. And if I just tilt that hand backwards, the thumb will be up at enough angle that I won't need supports. So I'm just trying to figure out the right angle, and it takes me a second to do it. Okay, now what I want to do is, once I get this cutter set up in the right place, here I'm renaming it as cutter, I want to import that box into the other file with the hand, so I can cut the hand at the same angle that I cut in the model, in the whole model. So I want to keep that little bit of the wrist, that little bit of that oval cylinder, I want to keep that attached to the body, to the arm, so that I can join them after they're printed. So here I'm moving it back so that I can cut the wrist away from the hand. Okay, now I'm deleting the wrist, and this is the part I'm going to print, just like that. So now I'm saving this as a separate file. I always like to save extra files so I can go back and redo if I need to. So I'm going back into the full model, and now I'm going to cut the hand out of that one and import the hand that I'm going to print, just to make sure that everything matches up. I like to double check my work. Saves you time, saves you plastic. Most importantly, time. The plastic really isn't that expensive, but some of this stuff takes forever to print. And I like to print slow so that I don't have to worry about supports. And that means things take time. Okay, just making sure everything fits the way it's supposed to, and it looks good. Just double checking that the hand fits in with the staff correctly, and it does. Now, I was going to put a key in the wrist, but it's so tiny that I think it's going to cause a problem. You'll see this is a 4mm cube. I make it 3mm. It's still really tiny. So, and I may still put a key in there, but I don't know. I'm not sure yet. Now, my other problem is here. This is the top of the staff. Now, I have to split this because if you'll notice, there are spheres in the bottom there. And I can't print it in this position. I got to cut it in half. And the problem with cutting it lengthwise, I'll show you as I do the Boolean modifier here, Blender is not letting me do it. It's the way the meshes are set up. It's not putting a back on it. That mesh is completely open in the back, so it's not printable. I'm going to go into edit modes here so you can see the way the vertices are going. There's an open back here. I didn't hide anything. This is the complete model the way it is. And there's no back to this mesh. And as well as there's inside faces. It just didn't cut correctly. So I'm going to have to do it a different way. And this is how we're going to go. This is starting over. I'm going to add a new cube, and we're going to cut it in half this way. And it's not optimal. I'm going to have to add a support to this. Doesn't make me happy, but there are times you can't get away from it. Sometimes you need supports. But I can get away with minimal supports. I mean, you wait until you see the support I'm going to put in here. Now, basically, I'm just cutting this in half using the Boolean modifier. So now I'm going to save this as a separate file. Now you want to keep everything in the exact same spot it's in, so that when I go into the first one and append the second half into it, they match up perfectly. Right? And I don't have to fiddle with it. It just pops into place the way it's going to. So now I can set up the keys without having to worry about messing around with things. So I'm just going to add a little cylinder here. Centering the cylinder up. Looks good. I'm going to reduce it just a little bit. Getting kind of small. I don't like to print too tiny, keys that are too tiny, but sometimes you can't get away from it. Okay, now I'm doing another key in the bottom half. Just setting up the size I like. And now I'm going to add a 1/15 of a millimeter to each dimension of both keys. So I'm cutting the key slots larger than the actual keys so that when they print, everything fits together. If you cut it at the exact same size, you won't be able to get those keys in there. You'll have to sand them down to make them fit, and it's a pain, especially with things like cylinders. You'll never get a nice round shape. It'll be too much of a pain. So it's just easier to cut your key slots just a little bit bigger. The important thing to remember is once you enlarge your keys to make the cuts, you then reduce them in size before you print them. Really important. Okay, so now I'm saving the keys as their own separate file. Everything's in the first half of the staff top. So I'm separating them out now. So I'm going to save this as... And it's very important you save as. Don't accidentally save when you're supposed to save as, because then you'll lose everything and you'll have to start from scratch. So now I'm saving the second key, being real careful to save as, and name all the files things that make sense. Key 1, key 2, having top of the staff in the name so that you know when you put things on the bed where everything goes. And I put stuff in file directories, so it keeps them together so that parts are grouped. If you have 5,000 parts all in one directory, it'll be a nightmare to figure out what to print with what, and it'll be a mess. Okay, now I want to show you here. I'm saving an STL, and I'm going to show you why we need to print a support. So we're slicing it up here. It'll just take a second. This is one small part. Okay, now as I go down through the layers, see that right there? That's in midair, this little part right there. So we're going to have to support that. No way around it. I wish we didn't have to, but it's just one area. And I choose to do these supports myself by hand. Now, I was going to do a cylinder, but it just looks too small and too delicate. I wasn't sure it would be enough. So scratch that. We're going to go with... sort of a thin wall. This is going to be a 0.5 millimeter thick. It should pop out really easy. It shouldn't be a problem. Just adjusting it now. Okay, bringing that up. Nope, we want to move that over just a little bit. I like to keep things nice and centered so they'll be easy to clean up. Okay, so now we're going to use the Boolean modifier union to join it to the mesh. Delete the double. Save it as an STL so that I can bring it into Cura, and then I'm going to show you how just that little bit will be enough to support everything. You don't need to cover the model in supports. You just need the place where it starts out, because it'll join really quickly and then you'll be fine. See how that one little bit supports that bottom piece, and that's really all I should need. Everything else is on enough of an angle that it doesn't really need supports. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing to the other side, and we'll be good to go. So now I'm just adding the support to that. And I know there are support blockers in Cura, and I could do just, hit the support setting in Cura, but it's going to be so much more cleanup if I do it that way. It'll be so much easier for me to do it by hand. So that's how we're going to do the top of the staff. And I hope if this video has helped you, you will like it and subscribe and ring that bell so you get the rest of the videos in this series. Thanks.